Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you are overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you are in the UK, 0330-332-6541, or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live in the main watch. The possible expectation, stresses, and the challenges of the new school year. And in the second block, the concerns of the UIC and how to address them. For our Facebook question, we ask, what are your expectations, stresses, and the challenges for the new school year? Share your responses on our Facebook or YouTube, Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes to 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your comments later on the program, but first, here's our quote.
This morning's I quote, "You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes, you can steer yourself any direction you choose." Dr. Seuss. I like it. Well, that's for those who have a brain in their head. Or a functioning brain. I'm so sorry, Lord, forgive me. We all have a brain. We just need to use it. Amen.
Amen. The Moon Watch will be back after this break.
Get ready for another World of Worship Wednesday inside Alive, September 1. Yes, stick around for prayer blast at 2 o'clock. At 2:15, we feature the powerhouse worshiper Benita Jones as a worship artist of the day. Then at 3 p.m. inside the Isle of Summer campaign feature Community Conversations. We hear from residents of the parish of Portland. All this and more will come your way on the family station Love 101.
Everybody wave, get something away.
Buying a home? Score big with a Sagicor Bank mortgage. It's easy. Find your property, apply for your Sagicor Bank mortgage, get your keys in no time, and you're home. Get a competitive interest rate, a line of credit up to $2 million, which you can use for any purpose, including home renovation, purchasing new furniture, or maybe installing a solar power system, plus a special rate on home insurance. Score big with a Sagicor Bank mortgage. Apply for yours today. Call 888-SAGICOR. Conditions apply.
Chris and Charles has something special for you this and every Friday at 11:45 a.m. Listen to the information carefully, then answer the questions in the Chris and Charles Financial Quiz Corner. There is so much to learn and you can win something fabulous from Chris and Charles. That's the Chris and Charles Financial Quiz Corner, Fridays at 11:45 a.m. Chris and Charles, when you think loans, think Chris and Charles. And it's on the family station Love 101.
Munchie! Yes, Boss I'm heading out now. Straight to Cars Auto a Montego Bay.
The entire Jamaica is heading to Cars Auto.
About variety, aye there. And the vehicle them clean as a whistle, and the price right. A two of them say good quality, best price.
Cars Auto.
Yes, miss, the online class is going well. My parents got big tablet savings from Flow, so I learn smarter and better from home.
Smartness runs in your family. Get 2 Samsung LTE tablets for only $6,000 plus GCT each when you bundle up your Flow mobile and home internet. Keep everyone connected to success with fiber fast internet and a new tablet for every lesson and study session anywhere. Visit a Flow store or discoverflow.co for excellent tablet savings. Conditions apply.
I've got love in my heart and I'm feeling.
Get ready for another World of Worship Wednesday inside Alive, September 1. Yeah, stick around for prayer blast at 2 o'clock. At 2:15, we feature the powerhouse worshiper Benita Jones as our worship artist of the day. Then 3 p.m. inside the Isle of Summer campaign feature community conversations. We hear from residents of the parish of Portland. All this and more will come your way on the family station Love 101.
Everybody wave, get something
Well,
Go right ahead, Stokely.
welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. Now, ask just about any parent, any mother, father, guardian, teacher, principal. A new school year always comes with various stresses, challenges, hopes, and expectations. Now we are going into another school year. Today is the official start of the school year 2021-2022. And classes are set to start officially next week. And apart from the normal expectations, etc., there is this whole matter of the various restrictions hovering over our head. And the question arises, are we more prepared for this school year than we were for last year's September 2020 to 2021 school year? What are the new or similar challenges and stresses? Well, we will be having a discussion with this today with two persons in the education sector. Mr. Darian Henry, Principal, Cumberland High School. Good morning, Mr. Henry. Are you on line with us, sir?
No, we don't have them on us yet. Yes, we're still
Mr.
trying
Henry,
to get through.
Well, I'll tell you this. I don't know if any of you listeners heard or listened to the town hall last night, well, yesterday I should say, in relation to various persons who lead and spearhead the education sector. We had the minister herself, the Honorable Fable Williams, and the relevant technocrats from both the Ministry of Education and Health, for example. And the outlook was quite concerning. Well, of course, clearly much of that town hall was focused on COVID. And the minister did indicate that there was no set deadline for the resumption of face-to-face classes. However, the education by online means would continue. And clearly I'm paraphrasing. I'm not giving a report per se on the town hall yesterday, but having listened to it, having watched parts of it, the outlook was quite concerning. And there was discussion as well about, the prospect or the whole matter of vaccination in relation to children came up. And, that was something which would have been of interest to many parents. And there are indications that in relation to one school I have heard of in particular, one high school, that parents did take their children to school in relation to vaccination or getting vaccinated, and many parents do still have concerns. So these issues plus many others are matters which will definitely be on the cards on the table this morning for discussion. Do we have anyone online now in relation to the discussion today? Either Mr. Henry or the co-guest? Maybe not, yes.
So sorry, Stokely. No, we're still trying. I think there is some challenges out there.
Yes, understood.
In addition to the challenges you just mentioned.
Yes. Indeed. Well, Mr. Henry is normally someone who has a lot to contribute. He is the principal of Cumberland High School, and many persons may even recall Mr. Henry as someone who...
We have Mr. Gordon on. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Mr. Gordon is now on. Mr. Kevin Gordon, a teacher of music, and which, of course, you are in the education field. Good morning, Mr. Gordon. We are so sorry about the challenges that you had in terms of coming online this morning, but you are now online with us. And jumping right into it, sir, because we did miss a few minutes. Good morning, Mr. Gordon. Of course, good morning to you, sir.
I've been driving, that's why I'm not able to log on.
All right, Mr. Henry is on now.
And Mr. Henry is now on as well. Okay, great. Mr. Gordon, having started this with you already, what are some of the concerns that you may have in relation to the resumption of school for this year, 2021-2022? You're a teacher of music. Can you teach music online? The Minister of Health at the phone hour last night did indicate that, there is no firm deadline or no firm date for the resumption of face-to-face classes. Mr. Gordon?
Well, good morning. Well, I'm actually a teacher of business studies as well. My concern, the usual lack of access to devices and internet services for many of our students and even some of our teachers. Teaching online.
And can I add perhaps even the presence of Wi-Fi or data, even for the teacher?
Yes, even for the teacher. Yes. That's right. And even what I'm experiencing now. For example, right now I have no internet services from last night. So even that, what I'm experiencing now is a condition. And teaching online is majority. There's so much more. There's so much you can do online, right? We're in an era now where a blended approach is being touted. But you lose the face-to-face. There's something about being in the presence of someone. You lose the non-verbal cues that you get from your students. It limits how you can mentor and build a relationship outside of the classroom in terms of extracurricular activities like going to matches, participating in JCDC, choir competitions, and so on, things like that. You lose that part of the hidden curriculum, as we would call it, where you interact with your students. Right. So that's gone. And there is many of our students, as I said before, don't have access. Even if online could work, don't have access. And even before COVID and after COVID, right? Totally online teaching is not good for our students, especially the younger ones, like the toddlers, who need to learn interactive skills and social skills and so on. It's not ideal.
Understood. Want to bring in Mr. Henry, principal of Cumberland High School. Good day, Mr. Henry. Good morning. Sorry that you only came on at this time.
Good morning. I'm so sorry to be joining you late. I had some challenges earlier.
Understood, sir. In terms of online education, any challenges that you see there, sir?
Oh, there are going to be monumental challenges, and while I do applaud the government's efforts to get our students at least 12 and above vaccinated, the truth is that we're going to see the real impact of the challenges with online learning as of now. I can tell you, for my school, it wasn't really designed for online school. Majority of the students that we get are students who are performing below grades 2 and 3. And so you can just imagine the type of customized learning, teaching and learning approaches which would be necessary and would be facilitated more effectively in a face-to-face environment. I'm very cognizant of the issues brought on by the lockdown, COVID-19, the surge in the numbers, and of course the responsibility of the government to make sure that public health is a priority. But we're seeing a situation now where the issues as it relates to getting the system together for online learning, at least for teaching and learning, is going to be impacted significantly. I was really worried when I heard the minister yesterday stating that it is the hope to have face-to-face resuming come September, but that is a big if. The situation as it relates to the surge in the numbers can be contained. So I'm extremely worried about the way forward. I can tell you we're having at my school student orientation this week, and the numbers compared to last year have been significantly down in terms of the number of students who have registered for returning and the new students, the new PEP students who are actually registered for the start of their high school journey. So we're very, 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 very concerned. I was in touch with my education officer yesterday. I tasked my own vice principal and our grade supervisors, guidance counselors, to go back to the drawing board to see how best we can strategize, come up with some new tactics to get to our parents, because they're spread far and wide. And the other dimension to the challenge is that
before we go on to the other matter, only because we started a little bit late, so we have to take a break now. It's a little bit overdue to pay some bills, but stay with us, listeners. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
Buying a home? Score big with a Sagicor Bank mortgage. It's easy. Find your property, apply for your Sagicor Bank mortgage, get your keys in no time, and you're home. Get a competitive interest rate, a line of credit up to $2 million, which you can use for any purpose, including home renovation, purchasing new furniture, or maybe installing a solar power system, plus a special rate on home insurance. Score big with a Sagicor Bank mortgage. Apply for yours today. Call 888-SAGICOR. Conditions apply.
Chris and Charles has something special for you this and every Friday at 11:45 a.m. Listen to the information carefully, then answer the questions in the Chris and Charles Financial Quiz Corner. There is so much to learn, and you can win something fabulous from Chris and Charles. That's the Chris and Charles Financial Quiz Corner, Fridays at 11:45 a.m. Chris and Charles, when you think loans, think Chris and Charles. And it's on the family station Love 101.
Munchie!
Yes, Boss
I'm heading out now. Straight to Cars Auto Montego Bay.
The entire Jamaica is heading to Cars Auto.
About variety, aye there. And the vehicle them clean as a whistle, and the price right. A two where them say good quality, best price.
Cars Auto.
Yes, miss, the online class is going well. My parents got big tablet savings from Flow, so I learn smarter and better from home.
Smartness runs in your family. Get 2 Samsung LTE tablets for only $6,000 plus GCT each when you bundle up your Flow mobile and home internet. Keep everyone connected to success with fiber-fast internet and a new tablet for every lesson and study session anywhere. Visit a Flow store or discoverflow.co for excellent tablet savings. Conditions apply.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I am your host, Stokely Marshall. We are in the main watch, and we're looking at the possible expectations, stresses, and challenges of the new school year. And our guests are Darian Henry, Principal, Cumberland High, and Kevin Gordon, Teacher of Music and Business Studies. Mr. Henry, just before the break, you were going on to talk about or to mention other matters or issues which were arising.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And again, good morning to your listeners and good morning to Mr. Gordon. I was going to mention the other dimension that is facing schools like ours, where the majority of the parents are minimum wage earners. And a lot of them would have been impacted by shutdown, cutback in salaries, redundancies, what have you. That has also put a spoke in the wheel to getting their children ready for school. So there's a high degree of responsibility, I can tell you. Up to yesterday, just before I started the grade 8 orientation, I was talking to our parents, whose child has not been in school from last year, September. When I asked what's happening, what can you do? Can you come in right away? She said, I'm not working, I don't know what to do. So I dispatched my guidance counselor to her right away to see how best we can get her to resuscitate her child getting back into school. The other thing about it as well that I'm really concerned, and the truth is there are many advantages, pedagogical advantages to online education. Trust me, there's no question. But there is a demographic of our students who are not able to adapt to the vicissitudes of online learning. When we at Cumberland High School evaluated the performance of the students in the last 2 terms, we have seen that, among other things, the rate of regression was much faster than we anticipated. In fact, the rate of learning loss, or the degree to which our students have been experiencing a decline in their cognitive development and in what they're able to do and what they're able to express, we have seen that the rate of regression, rate of learning loss, has been most pronounced in our boys. And I can tell you that it is the boys who are presenting more of the pedagogical challenges. This is what worries me the most. If we do not act extremely fast to get back our boys back into mainstream education, we're going to find ourselves in some serious challenges later on. I'm telling you, we need to get back our boys, picking them in at the formal teaching and learning. There is a crisis out there. I can tell you, we have a 930 students on our roll, yes? And up to yesterday when the vice principal was giving me a report, we're not seeing not even a third of the students returning for registration. The students are lost. We have to find ways and means to get to them. You may ask me what we're doing at the school-based level. As best as possible, anything that we can do. I asked my vice principal for student affairs with the grade supervisors, the guidance counselors, and the deans, and so on, to get back to the drawing board to see how best we can come up with the strategies of outreach and finding our children and getting them back into online, into mainstream education. But I'm extremely worried about what is going to be happening. Sure, there are kids who are doing well online, but I'm talking about the constituents of students that I have superintendents over who are lost. Yes, they have experienced the most challenges in terms of learning regression, and their families are suffering. And so I'm really, really worried about what's going to be happening, particularly as it relates to our boys. They're the ones who are not learning well. And so the longer they are out of school, is the more challenge it's going to be to get them back to a space of learning.
As you were there speaking, Mr. Henry, not that I am absolutely no expert in education, in the education field, but as you were speaking, something struck me. I wonder if maybe there'll have to be a change in approach or strategy. Maybe ways will need to be found to take the learning or the education to the communities, because right now the way it's organized is very centralized. They come to you at their buildings of your school.
Yes, that's a traditional model of education. But over time, the model has been evolving. We have used other modality, for example, the use of the printed materials. And we have seen that there's very low take-up. And that is annexed to another challenge that we have, is that among many of our parents, they don't see the importance of education. There is no glamorization of education. So there is no effort on the part of a lot of parents. And there are multiple explanations for that. Now, to the point that you raised, in my opinion, as it stands now, it behooves the entire system that we should have a special backroom going on right now, where we have the best minds in education coming up with some of the best solutions for life beyond COVID-19 in our education system. We're going to have to come up with new strategies, because what COVID-19 has done is to cast a beating on our education system. And we have to think about where we want to channel the education system beyond the next 10 to 15 years, the next 20 years. We have to look at the future of education, what the future of education is going to look like, what the future of work is going to look like, what the future of workforce development and training is going to look like. The education system has to be recalibrated in a transformational way. So in my opinion, while we battle and while we come up with the solutions for the now, we have to have a special backroom of the best of experts to come up with the best of strategies. I know the Prime Minister's commission that is reviewing the education system, their report is to come out anytime soon. I'm really hoping that coming out of this commission, this special report, will speak to where we're going to be taking our education system to the next dimension, because COVID-19 has really blown apart the real issues that have been there. But the question is, to what extent are we able to come up with the best and smartest policies so we can get back our education system to some semblance of normality?
Indeed, you have said quite a lot, sir, and we will definitely be thinking about it. Mr. Gordon, any comments, sir? Because, again, you do teach business studies, but you also teach music. And I asked you earlier, can you teach music online?
Why, Mr. Henry really put things into context. And the COVID pandemic has really highlighted the dichotomy that we have in Jamaica, because it has exacerbated some problems that are already there. He spoke a lot about socioeconomic situation, access, and so on, and that is so true. Interest of parents in education, the importance of education is not being glamorized. A lot of things, Mr. Henry said, a lot of things. And
I have so much more things that I want to raise. For example, if a vaccination for high school students and even younger, it has been spoken of in various ways, and the matter of tuition and other relevant issues. Any concerns about those things, so vaccination, tuition, any other issues?
I can tell you, I'm guided by Bulletin 137, but I can appreciate that there's quite a bit of movement happening now, lot of movement, moving parts. I can tell you there's a very low take-up rate among our students. We have tried to petition our parents, we have tried to petition them that the ministry has mandated us that only 65% and above in terms of the rate of vaccination, the number of students that will get approval for the reopening of schools. But there is a high degree of hesitancy, or might I say reluctance, among many of our parents, and I'm speaking directly here now. Yesterday, one parent challenged me in student orientation that the vaccine is killing our people. And I had to be very direct with the parent that you can't come here with misinformation, because what it does is to drive away other people who are on the fence, who really want their children to be back in school, who really want the semblance of normalcy to come back to the fold. So there is a big issue. The latest number we're having, that 37,000 students have so far been vaccinated. That's very low, compared to the total number of students overall. So, I know it's a moving target, and I know the parts are moving as rapidly. I know the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health, they're guided by the science, they're guided by the policy as well. But as I said before, the concerns with respect to what is happening with our young people, particularly our boys who are going through the primary part of the education system, unable to read and write and unable to comprehend. I want to make the final point. You see, with online education, and I spoke about some of the advantages. One of the disadvantages of online education is that for students who are reading way below their grade level, they barely function in using a device to access the learning episodes. So a child who, for example, is dyslexic, you talk about young children, fine. But for a high school age child who is dyslexic or who has dysgraphia, when they turn on that screen and all they see is Chinese language, So the online education is not advantageous in that regard for them, right? So I'm really hoping that the surge is abated. I'm really hoping that very soon we can get back to some semblance of normality in the education system.
I think we have to leave it there today. I think we're told you out of time. Many issues to look at. Many parents are still very concerned about the idea of vaccinating their children, and we have had contributions on both sides of the fence on the matter. And the expectations and stresses and challenges are not seeming to go away at this time, where we wait to see what happens. Mr. Gordon and Mr. Henry, we want to thank both of you for your contributions and for your time. And, we know that you have a daunting task ahead, and we wish you all the best, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day. Thank you.
To be here. Stay with us, listeners. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
Now With no processing fees and no down payment, it's time to open the door to your own sweet home. The time by JN Bank is
7:30.
CIBC First Caribbean reminds you that our ABM cards will be deactivated on September 30, 2021 and upgraded to the Visa debit card. Your Visa debit card does everything your ABM card does and more. Use it at any ABM and to shop locally, internationally, and online with funds directly from your savings or checking account. Visit CIBCFCIB.com to sign up for a CIBC First Caribbean Visa debit card today.
Are you an accomplished professional with senior managerial experience? Optimize your profitability with a high-impact doctoral degree from the University of Sunderland, offered through the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean. Practitioners without a master's degree but with significant senior managerial experience can also be considered for direct admission into the professional doctoral degree program. Begin your next journey of discovery. Apply online today at ucc.edu.jm or call us at 876-906-3000. UCC, fostering leadership and innovation.
See it, want it, get it with a summer loan from Chris and Charles. Borrow up to $3 million. Get low interest rates and fast approval. Call 876-920-4189 for details or apply online at www.chrisandcharles.com. Conditions apply. When you think loans, think Chris and Charles.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. Let's take a look at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. And in the major daily newspapers this morning and other happenings we have here in the Observer, there is a story here entitled Suicide Mission. It's written by Kimberly Perry and Anthony Lewis of the Observer. Now, it refers, I'll read a little bit of it. Savannah Lamar Westmoreland, as one nurse likened her job on the front lines of the COVID-19 fight to a suicide mission and wondered whether it was time to throw in the towel after yet another colleague died on the job. The head of their union yesterday urged them to take time to take care of themselves. And that is in relation to that particular story. Persons can take a look at the Observer online for that. Turning now to the Gleaner online, quite a number of stories there as well. And for example, we have here quite a bit of sports, but I'll jump to this one here. We had no oxygen. Doctor insists supply was late for nurse who died. We had no oxygen. Doctor insists supply was late for nurse who died. And among other lead stories here, Nation at War, insist on tourist vaccination, tap surplus to fight COVID, says Golding. And this is in reference to Mark Golding, the leader of the opposition. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has been charged by opposition leader Mark Golding to take control of a spiraling coronavirus outbreak that has brought a summer of deep crisis, of death and despair, invoking morbid imagery of a nation at war. And those, among many other stories in both major daily newspapers, certainly online. Coming up next, we'll read for you some of the feedback from our Facebook and WhatsApp session, which is what are your expectations, stresses, and challenges of the new school year? If you haven't done so yet, leave your responses on our Facebook or YouTube, Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and WhatsApp comments and voice notes to 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll be right back.
From generation to generation, Jamaicans have depended on J&B Bank to make the pride and joy of providing a safe place for their families possible. Now, with no processing fees and no down payment mortgage options, you can open the door to your own sweet home, a legacy to hand to your next generation. Visit jnbank.com to get pre-approved today. JN Bank will help you find a way.
DIGICEL. First in a class when you have Digicel. School as prime bundle. That's right, with your educational website, make you bright. Head to the top of your class with your first Digicel SIM and a school as prime bundle. Get over 142 gigabytes of data so you can have access to educational sites, social media platforms, Digicel apps, and more for as low as $1,500 for 28 days. Get a school as prime bundle with your first Digicel SIM card. Visit the Digicel store today. DIGICEL.
NIS pensioners, avoid the wait. Get your NIS pension straight to your bank account. It's easy. Simply visit the Ministry of Labor and Social Security's website, mlss.gov.jm, or the nearest NIS office and collect the direct deposit application form. Then complete the form and submit it along with supporting documents to the NIS office nearest you. Avoid crowds and long lines. Get your money when you want it. The National Insurance Scheme, always working for you.
I've got love in my heart and I'm feeling.
Get ready for another World of Worship Wednesday inside Alive, September 1. Yeah, stick around for prayer blast at 2 o'clock. At 2:15, we feature the powerhouse worshiper Benita Jones as our worship artist of the day. Then 3 p.m. inside the Isle of Summer campaign feature Community Conversations. We hear from residents of the parish of Portland. All this and more will come your way on the family station Love 101.
Everybody wave, get something away.
I am a man, I am a man, I am a man, yes. Strong man, integrity man, I am a man.
How does a man feel when he's unable to provide for his family? How does unemployment, job loss affects a man? What can an unemployed man do, or how can he help if he has an employed partner? Well, find out this and more this Wednesday, September 1, inside the program designed for men with guests who are men, hosted by men, as we have a chat with some male guests who lost their jobs during COVID, as we turn our eyes on unemployment, job loss, and the man. That's the Mailbox with host Kevin Bailey and yours truly, Courtney Morrison, on Love 101 FM, the family station. Monday.
Jamaicans, vaccinated and unvaccinated. They want all Jamaicans to be free. So whether or not you're vaccinated or not, we're supposed to be united as one Jamaica, one nation. So we're opposed to any form of force or fraud. And this government has been fraudulent. It has been trying to trick the Jamaican people and force the Jamaican people into taking something they don't want to take. He's using fear-mongering, and he's using threats to our teachers, threats to our nurses, and threats to all Jamaicans. We're opposed to employers trying to stop Jamaicans from having their jobs by forcing them to take vaccines. And it's not even a vaccine. It's a fake vaccine. It's not like your childhood vaccine. This is special. This is different. It is new technology. And we need to be careful about how we want to tell Jamaicans that they need to take this technology. And so, as a movement, as a party, we want Jamaicans to know that we're behind you. We're backing you. We're supporting you. So if you do not want to take this so-called vaccine, don't take it. Come to us and we'll provide you legal defense against the government's attempt to force Jamaicans to take this vaccine. If this device is a
of our registered political party here in Jamaica, the United Independent Congress, shortened as the UIC, and from that clip, Mr. Patterson was indicating quite a number of things in his capacity as the president of the party. And he and his fellow demonstrators noted, among other things, a trampling, and I'm paraphrasing, a trampling of the constitutional rights and freedoms of Jamaicans, and suggested that there was even the harming of the country's children, of the nation's children. And the party and certainly the group that was protesting, appeared to be demanding that the government halt the present vaccination drive and provide Jamaicans with other options. We should be having online now Mr. Joseph Patterson, President of the UIC. Mr. Patterson, good morning. How are you, sir? Mr. Patterson?
I think he needs to unmute.
There we go. Now it's unmuted. Good morning, Mr. Marshall. How are you?
Good morning, sir. We welcome back to the Morning Watch. It's not the first day I've had you on as a guest. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing fine, thank you. And I've been missing my invitations. It's been a long time.
Okay, sir. Well, you're on now. Well, maybe it's time that you're on at this time. Now, if one were to even go to YouTube and or even anywhere online and do an internet search, type in, for example, anti-mandatory vaccination protests, etc., you will see where there have been protests in places such as New York, USA, Paris, France, Athens, Greece, and closer to home, St. Vincent, a neighboring Caribbean territory. Now, is this the UIC, as it were, making a statement in that regard here in Jamaica? What inspired your decision to, or what inspired the protests that were recently held here on the island in relation to being against mandatory vaccination?
Right. Well, the UIC is very concerned that the government has not been objective, it has not been transparent, it has not been inclusive in its approach to dealing with the pandemic. Instead, it has chosen a path, first of all, of being quite partisan and also quite draconian in its approach, with a real disregard for the individual sovereignty of Jamaicans and behaving as though it is a dictatorship. And the UIC is completely opposed to that. We believe that there is a far better approach to dealing with any public health emergencies. And so because of that, we are encouraging Jamaicans not to be bullied, not to be forced into doing something they don't want to do, not to be tricked either into doing something they don't want to do. And many Jamaicans are apprehensive. Many Jamaicans are concerned because the government has not built trust with the Jamaican people, but instead have sought to bully the Jamaican people into doing what I perceive as their foreign master's objective.
You know, I'm looking here at a recent release in terms of the Jamaica Information Service website. It's dated August 11th, 2021, written by Alicia Smith. The headline is "No plans to make vaccination mandatory," and I'll read a little bit of it. Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, is assuring the nation that government has no plans to make coronavirus COVID-19 vaccination mandatory. And there's a quotation here. Quote, "As it stands now, and we have discussed it in cabinet, the government is not thinking about nor inclined to mandate any vaccine. In fact, we don't believe that is something that would meet the constitutional test," unquote, he said. In light of that quotation from the Prime Minister, Mr. Patterson, on what basis are you making some of the assertions that you just did?
When you were a child, you might have heard your grandparents tell you that actions speak louder than words. And the Prime Minister's words are not consistent with his actions. He has threatened Jamaicans that they will not be able to go back to any form of normalcy unless they do what he says, which is to take this so-called vaccine. He has threatened teachers. He has threatened nurses. He has allowed and encouraged and facilitated employers in pushing out statements that if you don't get vaccinated, you won't have your job, directly or indirectly. So if somebody, and he has also, he has mandated the vaccine. He has quarantined Jamaicans in their homes now for 3 days at a time at stretches. And he has, put in place curfews that has, decimated our local economy in so many ways. And so the Prime Minister's actions suggest that he's forcing Jamaicans, and force doesn't have to be very obvious. It can be indirect. And that's what he has been doing. He has been using indirect force to coerce and corner Jamaicans into a one solution policy. He has not encouraged Jamaicans to look at other options. He has not encouraged Jamaicans through any serious campaigns to build their immune systems, to understand that their own health is their responsibility. He has not encouraged Jamaicans to do anything but simply line up to take a vaccine. And that cannot be the only solution. And he has also not created an environment of objectivity. He has not created an environment where other persons, other interest groups are involved in the decision-making process to make sure that Jamaicans feel and see a transparent approach to it or an inclusive approach to it. Instead, he has just gone on the path of mandates. And actually, if you look at it, the Prime Minister has been more of a parrot. Everything he says, you can go and find it quickly in another country. So he pretty much just cut and paste. Whatever they say over there, he does over here. We don't have a Prime Minister who is caring and loving, who is paying attention to the nuances of the Jamaican environment. You know, when you lock down a country where most people live hand to mouth, what do you expect to happen? That's why we have the rise in crime that we're seeing. That's why we have the rise in domestic violence. That's why we have the rise in children pregnancies. That's why we have the rise in poverty. You know, so the Prime Minister needs to be more sensitive and more aware of the Jamaican situation. He has even made fun of Jamaicans who are living, you know, in less than ideal circumstances about, you know, having to buy quarter bread or big jollof oil and so on. And he takes this thing very lightly. And, you know, if you don't, you know, and he characterized those who are of the lower echelon that, you know, they're going to suffer more because of lack of information. Why doesn't he provide objective information? Why doesn't he ensure that all Jamaicans are properly informed, whether they're poor or rich? And why does he ensure that we have other options which can save lives? You know, for almost 2 years, we have gone without a vaccine. And we have not had a serious change in our total death rates in the country. And nor has the Prime Minister allowed or encouraged other things that could have been done to save lives. For example, just to pick one example, ivermectin, that could have been used very early in the process to save many Jamaicans' lives. But instead, the Prime Minister actually had policies to prevent such a drug to be brought into the country as it was previously before, and he has not encouraged it. You know, so we have a health ministry, we have a Prime Minister, we have a government which seems to be a parrot. It simply parrots what is given to it by its foreign masters, and it seems to be a puppet. It seems to do exactly what it's told by its foreign masters without regard for the local situation and local consequences here.
You said quite a lot of things, sir. You mentioned foreign masters. You mentioned earlier on that quarantining persons was in some way akin to forced vaccination or mandatory vaccination. You didn't say forced. Akin to mandatory vaccination. You said quite a bit of things. Now, if someone is quarantined, how would that be in any way related to mandatory vaccination, sir?
When you curfew people who are not sick, when you force people not to be able to go about their normal business, so you take them out of their jobs, you take them out of their hustle, you lock down their industry and allow them no longer to earn an income, and you imply that the way to get back to earning an income is if you go and take the vaccine. That is force, that is coercion. If, on the other hand, you provided people with information, objective information, and satisfy them that you're not pushing anybody's agenda, but rather the agenda of the health of all Jamaicans, then you will have persons voluntarily complying or voluntarily choosing to do things that are in their best interest. There's nobody who wants to die, typically speaking. You know, you don't have people walking around wanting to be suicidal. We all want to live, generally speaking. And so what we need is a government that supports us in pursuing healthy choices, in pursuing health and life, but not a government which is forcing a particular agenda and making policy decisions that are crippling our economy and crippling our children and even destroying our health. The stress alone and the distress of, most hand-to-mouth Jamaicans who cannot go out normally and earn their bread. You're locking them off from, 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock, and you're locking off, and you're giving them, 3 days you can't go out, and, this kind of stuff is wrong. It is contrary to respecting the sovereignty of individuals. And the UIC is adamantly opposed to it and will do everything possible to help Jamaicans to come to the awareness that this is the wrong policy, this is the wrong approach, and that the Jamaican government does not appear to be representing the people of Jamaica, but some other interest.
And you mentioned foreign masters. You keep referring to that, and you have also mentioned an agenda. And in terms of watching your video clip of the protest, the recent protest you had, it was indicated, or you did say, that the JLP and PNP have come together. I made note of that comment of yours. The JLP and the PNP have come together. This is in relation to the clip that was played a while ago, which, by the way, if anyone can find it on YouTube, it's a clip that was put together by the Gleaner. And when you say foreign masters agenda and the PNP and the GLP have come together, what are can you develop on the matter of the foreign masters and the agenda first?
Sure. So let's begin with the JLP and PNP coming together. Right now, you have a situation where the Jamaican people have no representation in the House of Parliament. The only people who are represented in our House of Parliament are those who are providing the funding for the vaccination, those who the government respects and believe they must do as they say. And you do not hear the opposition party standing up for the Jamaican people. They're behind the government's vaccination, so-called vaccination drive. And what I hear from constituents all over the country is that nobody represents them. They're so happy that the UIC has stepped up and started to ask the right questions and say, what is this? So they might not have come together in terms of signing a piece of paper, but they certainly are not offering the Jamaica alternative positions. They have one position, and that is, let's vaccinate 700,000 Jamaicans with a substance that is very new. This is not like your childhood vaccines. This is something very, very new, it doesn't mean it's bad, but it doesn't mean it's good either. It doesn't mean we know all the information about it. And we seem to have a government and an opposition that just takes information from outside parties and force it on Jamaicans without showing us that they truly understand it and helping us to understand the consequences of it. And now they're even going after our children with it, when we have been told for years, for the duration, that children are in the lowest groups in terms of vulnerability. But now they're going after our 12-year-olds, and they're even looking at injecting children without their parents' consent in some areas. And they're telling our kids at universities that you can't be on campus if you don't take this. There seems to be this dragnet of just trying to corner the Jamaican people and say the only way out of this is if every single one of us take this substance, which I'm not even sure the Prime Minister and Minister of Health understands. I don't understand it. I don't know all the ins and outs of this particular substance that they want to put in our bodies. I'm not a scientist or a doctor. But what I do know is that internationally and even locally, there's been a massive attempt at censoring people who want to say anything contrary. Even doctors and scientists who are skilled in their fields, they have been blocked, they have been censored. There are all kinds of attempts to prevent us from hearing from others. And we have our very own government being quick to talk about people giving misinformation when the very government has done things that are contrary to what it says. For example, in the 2020 election, the Prime Minister had 9 months available to him before calling an election constitutionally, before holding an election constitutionally, and he chose to rush into an election as opposed to focusing on protecting Jamaicans. So for him, power was more important. Securing 5 more years of salary and access to the public purse was more important than his own policy guidance, that it was so important for us not to have anything that's going to create a mass coming together of people and possible transmissions. So the Prime Minister, when it suits him, he changes the rules to satisfy himself while he's punishing Jamaicans, punishing us. He's the one who opened our borders to tourists. The Prime Minister could have closed the borders to tourists and focus on ensuring that we contain any contamination or spread here in Jamaica. He could have focused on building our healthcare system, focus on building our knowledge, local knowledge and understanding, as opposed to draconian measures that are just done whenever he feels like it's necessary. This is wrong. And, when I talk about foreign masters, I'm talking about the fact that the prime minister appears at all times to simply be cutting and pasting what others are doing outside of Jamaica. And all Jamaicans can see, there's a coordinated effort around the world. We have never seen such a coordinated effort before to get everybody, every government in lockstep in following just this one line to advance one product, one major product, one standardized kind of product to force on the citizens around the world. And our government has chosen to join into that as opposed to defending the rights and freedoms of Jamaicans. There's a different way of approaching this. The UIC has a much better approach, which I can share with you when you want to hear it.
Well, of course, certainly. And of course, not to take away from anything that you have said, Mr. Patterson, but on an editorial note, because of some of the earth-moving things you have said today, I mean, clearly these are the views of the UIC, and we assume, sir, that you can support the things that you have said. However, in relation to a path going forward, what would you have done differently were you in the Prime Minister's seat? We are dealing with what has been indicated as an emergency. You have made a number of statements. For example, you have, not sure if you have supported your statements, you made mention of a fake vaccine. And, you even made mention in your video, you made a statement about the virus suggesting that it's, it's not really clear what you meant when you referred to the virus. I don't know if you meant that there wasn't enough evidence to support that there is a virus. You did make a statement. If the person listened to your video clip, they would have heard what you have said, and listeners can take a look at that. What would you have done differently, sir?
Sure. So if I were Prime Minister, there are a few key things I would have done. First of all, my government would close the border to tourists to reduce contamination and contain the impact on our people and healthcare system while compensating tourist workers. That's very important. You must first defend your borders so you can control what's coming in and out of your country. We would show love, care, and respect for every citizen and their rights as sovereign individuals. Now, this is important because it's a matter of philosophy. Our government does not see our people as sovereign individuals, so it thinks it can violate their rights anytime. So in our system of respect for the sovereignty of the individual, there would be no mandates, no mask mandates, no social distancing mandates, and no curfews. Only carefully explained recommendations. There'd be no attempts to force, coerce, or scare people into taking any particular medication. This approach would build trust in the Jamaican people. We would convene an impartial public emergency council of informed Jamaicans, including the best scientists, the best doctors, the best lawyers, the best engineer, academics, civil society groups, representatives of all registered political parties, to ensure that we have a non-partisan and non-political approach to a public health emergency. We would use this as the basis to agree on the facts. What are the facts and what are the assumptions, so that the Jamaican people have a differentiation, what we know to be true today and what our assumptions we're making about the situation. We would use this to educate and keep informed the Jamaican people in an objective, transparent, and inclusive manner that respects their natural born right to freedom of speech, freedom of movement, and freedom of association and freedom of choice. By this means, our citizens would know the truth about the situation and come to trust their government to provide them with appropriate guidance and recommendations to protect themselves and their families. No draconian measures would be employed. Rich or poor, educated or not, everyone would have the same unbiased, transparent, and non-threatening information they need to take appropriate actions. The army, the police, public and private health institutions, together with the Ministry of Health, and the other civil society groups would be mobilized into a strong, impartial, and non-partisan unit to support everyone who needs help to keep their family and themselves safe until the threat is resolved.
So you'll be taking more like this approach taken in Sweden.
Well, I don't want to specify any particular country, but you could say that if you wish. What I'm saying is we don't want politicians also going around with either money or care packages. That is wrong. You need to have a public response to a public emergency and nothing partisan and nothing political about it. Continuing, all medical options would be limited.
I think we're totally out of time, and I suppose
we are. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Losing their job if they don't take a vaccine.
Sorry, go ahead. I didn't hear you.
I think you're saying also that there would be no fear of losing your job if you don't take a vaccine.
Absolutely. No fear. There will be no threats. Nothing like that. People would have the option, and it would be an option at all times. So, medical options will be on the table. Ivermectin, other solutions. We're not going to lock the Jamaican people into one product and one solution.
Understood, sir. I think we're totally out of time. Thank you, Mr. Patterson, for being with us. Not cutting you because we're just cutting it for cutting your sake, but we're totally out of time. I want to thank you for your contributions and for your time and for your thoughts, sir.
And thank you for having me, because not everybody does this, so I really appreciate it. All the best.
We do controversial issues on this program, sir. Thank you, our listeners, for being with us. Join us again tomorrow to look at other topical and controversial issues. Visit the Love 101 FM YouTube channel and Facebook page for this and other Love 101 FM programs. Listen to the Morning Watch on our Love 101 app and download it today and stay connected to the family station, Love 101 FM, the number one gospel station in Jamaica. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and to our guests. I am Stokes and Marshall, hanging back up in the morning with Nadine Blair.
Thank you so much for listening to The Morning Watch with Stokely Marshall.